Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the second installment of Alumni Cocktails and Conversations with the Dean. I'm the Dean, Rick Davis, of the College of Visual and Performing Arts at George Mason University, and this is my cocktail for the moment, a glass of high-test water. I want to welcome you to make your own beverages throughout the afternoon here that we're going to spend with three amazing and delightful alumni of George Mason University on the subject, which you see on your screen below you, using your creative arts degree outside of the creative industries. And I'll just spend a second here before I introduce our guests talking about that and how important it is to us, because our belief, our practice in the college is that a degree in the arts is not only professional preparation for a life in the arts, as a creative artist, as a performer, as a visual artist, as a scholar, but it's also a great liberal arts education in and of itself. And the whole premise of a liberal arts education is that it prepares you broadly as well as deeply. It creates that classic T-shaped individual who has a lot of different interests and a lot of different skill sets, and also has depth in one or more areas. That's the way we teach and practice the arts at George Mason. And the folks you're about to meet on this program are great examples of how they have not only been successful as artists and continue to be, but they also have developed strong, very thriving careers outside of the specific preparation that they received at George Mason. This program is part of Mason Arts at Home, which is a digital content source that we at CVPA decided to launch as soon as we understood that all of our venues and other outlets were going to be closed by the pandemic. And so our wonderful production team and academic team, led in this case by Adrienne Godwin, our director of programming, and her associate Haley Smizer, who are both monitoring our show today and are going to step in if we get in trouble. But Adrienne and Haley and a great team of production staff behind them have really stepped up to create a thriving stream of both brand new content like this and performances that we've recorded in the past, including some new commissioned work that's being created specifically for digital content, specifically for this program. So we're very proud of Mason Arts at Home. And there's a lot more coming between now and May 18th when the semester ends and when the season of Mason Arts at Home ends. But you can find out all about that on the Center for the Arts website or the College of Visual and Performing Arts website, or on our many Facebook channels where you're probably watching us right now. All right. It's now my great privilege to introduce three alumni from the School of Music at George Mason University. And I have to say, on a very personal note, before I tell you who they are, in my life at George Mason, which goes back to 1991 or so, I have had the pleasure of working with all three of these folks. They're all singers. They all are wonderful singing actors. And in the course of my work at George Mason, I've directed a lot of both musical theater and opera productions, and have had the pleasure of working with these terrific artists over the course of their student days, and even performing with one of them. But that's for later. In the order of appearance, we're going to be meeting Isaac W.K. Thweatt, who graduated from George Mason in 2005. And he is now the executive director of individual giving at the Columbia Business School of Columbia University. And Isaac will be joining us. There's Isaac on singing the national anthem, I think, or something equally ceremonial. Isaac's a wonderful baritone, and he'll tell you about that when we meet him. And there he is in recital. I bet that's the stage of Harris Theater at George Mason. And I think we have one more picture of Isaac. There he is on the big screen at Mason, bringing a ceremony to a rousing either conclusion or beginning. Our second guest is Sean Attebury, also a graduate of the School of Music. He graduated in 1997, and he lives in New York now and is a real estate agent with Core Real Estate. And we are going to show you in the comments section or over on the side some clips or some links to clips that Sean has provided that really give you a great flavor for his approach to his business. And if you want to buy a house, look him up. And our third guest is Aundi Moore. another graduate of the School of Music, another singer who graduated in 2003, but not just another singer. Aundi Moore is also a Metropolitan Opera artist. And if you had the exquisite pleasure, as I did, of seeing Porgy and Bess this season at the Met, well, I had the exquisite pleasure of seeing it in a movie theater in Gainesville, Virginia, but it was live HD from the Met, and there was Aundi as the Strawberry Woman singing beautifully with a fantastic ensemble, which, by the way, also featured Aaliyah Waheed Key, another alumna of George Mason University, in the ensemble. And Aundi, when she's not singing at the Met or elsewhere, is the team leader for the Barnett Group with Sampson Properties, so another person who works in the real estate industry. So let's bring our guests into the studio by the magic of electronics, and let us begin this conversation. The way we want to set this up, folks, is we want to have each of you, in the order that I described, just spend a few minutes telling us about your time at Mason and your launching yourself into your next professional journey. And then we'll bring it all full circle and we'll talk amongst ourselves, and we'll also take questions from the audience if they care to engage in the Facebook discussion or the chat, and I'll be getting those questions relayed to me. So, Isaac, so nice to see you, by the way.
It's
so nice
good to see you too. I'm thankful for the opportunity to share with my alumni community and the students that are walking in our footsteps. Good to see you. Happy to start off with sharing a little bit about who I am. Born and raised from a place called Prince George County, Virginia, right in central Virginia, about 30 minutes south of Richmond. And I chose George Mason as the school I would attend in 10th grade, not because of the exceptional arts program, but because I was a cheerleader and the school colors matched my high school colors. And I people who were on the mat dancing and shouting, and people who looked like me. And so that was the first time. But of course, after auditioning for the music program and receiving a scholarship, it was absolutely where I wanted to be out of the three schools at which I applied. And I knew I wanted to be a singer. I thought I wanted to be a teacher. That was all clarified for me the moment I was assigned my voice teacher, walking around the hallways the first week of school, the old version of the arts building before you have the new beautiful edifice you have now, and walking into the director of vocal studies office, Professor Patricia Miller, saying, "Hey, I don't have a voice teacher yet, and I'm a music major." And she said, "I'll take you." And that was both my introduction to being a true singer, to learning the art of vocal performance, and for spending a lot of long nights in practice rooms with German and French and Italian songs that I'd never been exposed to before I got to Mason. One of the speakers who's joining us today, Aundi Moore, was kind of a big sister to me when I was at Mason. She was 2 years ahead of me in school, and thank goodness for the network of music students who know the ropes, who know that when you are getting asked to show up for rehearsal, you need to be 2 and 3 minutes ahead of schedule, not 2 and 3 minutes late. But I'm grateful for the training that I had, and you're right, the picture that you saw earlier was from my senior recital with my fellow class of 2005, Adriana Scarlata. And
I thought that was her. And Dr. Parker at the piano, I think.
Dr. Parker at the piano, yeah. I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to sing full time once I got to my senior year, but I did also find another passion, which was administration. And I tried for probably 3 or 4 months just before leading up into graduation to find a position. And I was thankful to land a role as an analyst with a nonprofit after recognizing that a fellow George Mason alumna worked there too, who knew me from my fraternity work. And so I guess we can fast forward 17 years and sticking with administration and education being a passion. And I have found my pathway in higher ed as a fundraiser and relationship manager. But I still sing. That photo that you talked about earlier was me singing the national anthem at the School of Business graduation ceremony. And that's something I think I did for 12 years before moving to New York City. And probably the lasting thought I can offer is, no matter what you decide to do and where you find your passion, for me, I am a singer and an artist who will likely retire as being a higher education administrator and fundraiser. But I always think dearly about how I can continue to be a performing artist, continuing to sing with churches in New York City, continue to do funerals and weddings, of course, and continuing to be a patron of the arts as well.
That's beautiful, Isaac. So what a great story. And we'll come back to you when we're having our round robin, because I have a specific question for you that probably applies to everybody also, but I want to seed it here, and then we'll come back to you for it. And that is, what part of your performer's toolkit do you find most useful in your current job? Don't answer now, but
I can't wait to share.
Think about that for a moment or two. And let's bring in Sean Attebury, who was my partner in crime on several shows, but most memorably for me anyway, a production of Sweeney Todd that I directed and that we appeared in together back in the mid-90s at George Mason University. Sean, what's going on?
Yes, that was fun. I played Mrs. Lovett.
You did not.
But that was a great time. Hi, everyone. I'm Sean Attebury. I'm a multi-million-dollar Manhattan real estate agent, which means that I sell very tiny little apartments, and probably as big as some of your garages at best for millions of dollars. But I wasn't always that. I had a pretty good 10-year career as a professional musician. And, before I auditioned for the music department at George Mason, I wasn't a very serious musician. I was in a rock band in high school, and I did a couple musicals also in high school. And so the music department, I think, took a risk on me. I couldn't read music. Stan Engebretson was very supportive. He was also very patient. I did a Mikado workshop before I got to Mason. Rick, I think you were also involved in that too.
Yes, indeed.
Those were, I think all my teachers back then were pretty patient, because I was kind of transitioning out of this, like young kid with in a rock band with a not bad attitude, but, certainly not classical music on the mind. And I was very lucky to have a teacher named Kate Herden. She was there for my first couple of years, and I studied with her. And, she was gentle. She understood. She knew, what I needed, I think, to kind of foster that. And then I started really enjoying it. I enjoyed singing musical theater. I enjoyed singing opera. While I was at Mason, while I was finishing my degree, I performed at the Kennedy Center with the Washington Opera Chorus. And I did some performing at GMU in the theater department. I also did little roles in regional operas. And Mason fostered and often encouraged my performances. A lot of teachers, maybe a lot of institutions don't want that. They'll say you're not ready, or I'd see other students kind of get shot down, like you can't do this yet. I feel like if you don't put yourself out there, you're not going to really gain experience. So I was grateful for that. The area was so fantastic because there were a lot of performing opportunities. I did move to New York, and I started auditioning after I did a year of grad school at the Mannes College of Music. Once I racked up enough debt there, I started working. So okay, I need to, I did young artist programs. I did, I got opportunities outside of school. And since I had a performance degree anyway, that's what I wanted to do. I just left after a year of graduate school at the Mannes College of Music. I did a great world tour of West Side Story. I got to play Tony, which was very gratifying. I did a Broadway show, a couple Broadway shows, limited run. One of them was longer. And that was fun. Although I remember getting my first Broadway show, and you claw your way and it takes a few years. And on opening night, I kind of said, boy, I got to do this 8 times a week.
So now they tell you.
I know. So, opera offers maybe a little bit of variety. I also did after I'd kind of retired or gotten into real estate, I did stand-up comedy. That was a lot more freedom. Honestly, I could do whatever I wanted. That was very gratifying. I used all of my performing skills and experience that I got from Mason, basically that rudimentary rehearsal of all the material and developing the material. I applied that sort of classical education to stand-up comedy, believe it or not. And now in music, I switched to real estate kind of back and forth when it was a lot of travel. I was offered gigs that were all kind of like, go to Iowa for $500 a week, but I've got a family and a mortgage, and so I was like, okay, maybe I'll try something else. And so I went back and forth to real estate, and then I slowly fell in love with that. And I in terms of the arts nowadays, I've produced a couple of Broadway shows. I raised money for one, and then I was a full producer on another. That was very gratifying. And my kids are involved. They're both at a music conservatory in New York City. Very hard to get into, and somehow they made it. I think my wife does more of the coaching me than I do, but they're great little musicians. So that's my attachment now to music.
Terrific. Well, I'm going to come back to you with the Isaac question also, but after we hear from Aundi Moore. So let's bring Aundi into the room. And there she is. Good to see you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, just loud and clear.
Fantastic.
Just like at the back row of the Metropolitan Opera House.
Thank you. So I'm Aundi Moore, and my hometown is Chesapeake, Virginia. I'm a good old country girl. And I graduated from Mason 2003. My major was Bachelor of Music, but I also got a minor in IT. You wouldn't know that because I don't know nothing about IT right now. My current position is I'm also a multi-million-dollar top producing a real estate agent in the DMV area. I live here in Bowie, Maryland, and I'm also still singing professionally. I just made my debut at the Met, and prayerfully I'll be back there once all this COVID-19 foolishness ends. So just a little bit about my path. Let me just say that the professors at Mason were amazing. The reason why I came to Mason from high school was because of Patricia Miller. Professor Patricia Miller came to me and she said, I can help you. I can take you to the next level. And I wanted to be a famous opera singer. That was what I wanted to do. There was nothing else more gratifying to me than to become a famous opera singer. And then I felt like if I make it to the Met, then I have succeeded, that I am successful. Let me just tell you, if you're a student listening to this, don't measure those things. Don't be like me and do that, because you will always be chasing this. And so my measure of success has totally changed. And now the Met has become more of icing on the cake and the cherry on top for me, other than that's what is the pinnacle of success. But Patricia Miller was my voice teacher there. Dr. Stan Ingebretson was the first professor who took me under his wing and took me overseas so that I could experience singing opera and spirituals, because that's also my background, gospel music and spirituals. And then Dr. Monson, who is now, I believe, the chair of the music department, she told me that I will not let you just be a dumb singer. And she said it in a very nice way, but that's what she meant. Because I was like, Dr. Monson, who needs to know about music theory and sight reading and sight ear training? Nobody's going to care. And she's like, yes, they will. You will not be a dumb singer. And so I'm so grateful for those gifts, because from all three of those professors, because not only I teach voice myself, but I also mentor other young singers and young real estate agents coming up and, trying to figure out their way. And having the education that Mason has afforded me was just, to be honest, it was a great foundation. And so while singing, I met my husband. And I was in the Young Artist Program at Washington National Opera at the Kennedy Center. So I was on that path of being the famous opera singer that I wanted to be. And unfortunately, 2008, 2009, the crash hit. And that was when the stock market crashed and the real estate market went down. And I had no idea what all that meant. And I didn't realize that music was, live music was a luxury. And so opera companies weren't hiring. They were unfortunately folding then. And my husband, in the most loving, kind way he could possibly be, said to me, "You need a job, girl, because I can't take care of you." And I was thinking, what do you mean I need a job? I'm a singer. All I know how to do is sing. And he was like, no, honey, you need a job, poo-poo. I love you, but you need a job. So he and I both decided, because I love watching HGTV, he was like, you know what? You should be a realtor. I'm going to tell you, when he told me that, honey, I thought it was a slap in the face. I was like, how dare you call me a realtor? I'm a singer. But he paid for me to go to real estate school. And unbeknownst to him and me, it was the best decision I could have made. So in between, while singing, I was selling real estate. And I can still do that because now I also have a team of agents that help me. So when I'm on the road, they take over my clientele to make sure that my clients still get the customer service and the quality of service that they need while I'm performing. So that's my little spiel.
So you're both a realtor and a manager.
Okay.
In that field, right? Yeah.
Definitely. I'm
So
a manager as well.
Yeah. So you're not only a singer, you're a director.
Yes. And I'm an encourager. I'm a cheerleader, so, you have no choice. When you're your own business owner, you have to figure it out and change and transition with the time.
Oh, that's fantastic. All great stories. I want to go back now to Isaac, and I want to ask each of you in turn the question, which is, what are you most, or what aspect of your performing self or your academic training, I guess those are two different questions, but you can bring them into one if you want, do you find most applicable in your daily professional job today?
Yes. I'm laughing on the inside and the outside because all of the stories that Sean and Aundi shared are just so personal for me as well. You could just copy and paste and insert the music student. Davis, to answer your question, I think, there is something powerful about the Bachelor of Music program at George Mason University. And I know not every program has this class, but the performance seminar class is the one resonating most strongly for me in this moment. There's power in vocal pedagogy and IPA and learning the Alexander technique and having our opera workshop class that was at 7:20 at night on Monday nights.
Yes, it was.
But to be responsible as an 18-year-old, a 19-year-old aspiring performing artist with learning the text, the meaning, the translation of a 3 to 5 minute foreign language piece, to walk into the space, to, pretending as if you're already on the stage, and then to be able to engage with an audience of your peers and your professor, it is, you can't match that. And I, as a performing artist, as a fundraiser, as a management and leadership trainer, and as a higher education administrator, I have used that skill in every aspect of my professional life. It's so odd to me when I see leaders who don't know how to walk into a room and don't know how to command presence. And it happens on the national level. And it happens in all of our organizations. So I'd have to say that the capacity to walk into a space to understand the emotional aspects of being a speaker in the moment and being able to deliver a message that is memorable, understandable, and valuable.
Great. Terrific. Sean, what about you?
I would say improvisation and subject knowledge. Improv, I mean, I'm selling real estate, and I do find myself, it's very presentational. Someone will ask a question, you have to give an answer. I don't try to mess with people or BS them, but you kind of have to know your product, and it is a presentation. It may, and I've sold new development, and there you really got to get all the details and all of the materials, and this is a certain type of marble, and this is and so presenting that in a beautiful way is a major difference, I think, in whether or not you'll sell something. If you show up and you're sloppy and you're not wearing your suit and you don't really know what's going on. I've walked into presentations like that, and my buyers are like, "What's going on there?" You need to, I think, make them feel like they're walking into a Rolls-Royce dealership and presenting it beautifully. And that, what, Patricia Miller taught me that. You walk into a room and you command that, because I was fortunate enough when Kate left and I switched to Patricia. That was I mean, I had to echo the sentiment of my colleagues. The professors there were all pretty fantastic, but dressing for success and utilizing that.
Fantastic. Ms. Moore.
For me, I agree totally with Isaac as well as Sean, but also, to be honest, when my husband stated that I needed to learn something new, being able to learn different foreign languages and being able to IPA and things, there was nothing harder than that. And so real estate was just, okay, you're right. I can learn something new. I can figure it out. If I can speak these languages, if I can learn how to read music, because that is also a challenge in itself. If I can do those things, then I know that I can do any other job out there. I can do anything I want to. I just put my mind to it and I can do it. Of course, what they're saying about being able to present yourself, and that comes with the territory of being a performer, but being, really removing the roadblock of I can't learn this there's no excuse. There is none. When you can learn a foreign language, honey, there is no excuse why you can't learn real estate, why you can't learn administration, whatever it is you want to learn, there is no excuse. That was one of the best things that I learned and understand about just having a liberal arts degree.
I'm glad everybody said what they said. I'm going to add a couple things. First of all, I want to make sure that our audience understands that IPA does not mean India Pale Ale in this case. It's the International Phonetic Alphabet.
Sorry.
Yeah. A little bit of trade talk, but both things are useful in life. But you all sort of alluded to this idea of being able to first of all, do your homework, and second of all, present yourself with great confidence and great sense of purpose, intention. And I would say, I want to add to that, maybe this is a statement that may become a question if you want it to be, the value of listening, because as a performer of any kind, acting, singing, instrumentalist, whatever it might be, or if you're a dancer, the same kind of listening with your body to the work that your partner's doing. It's all about being available to the moment that you're in. And in all of the work that you do, I'm guessing, fundraising, I happen to know because I happen to have to do some fundraising as a dean. Mm-hmm. It's as much about listening as it is about presenting. And you want to try to understand the intention. I'm guessing now with the real estate profession, it's understanding what the buyer is looking for and being able to find the way to meet that. So there's so many different analogies. I don't know if that sparks anything in anybody.
I'm trying to think, Dean Davis, when was the first time you directed me in an opera, and was it A Mall in the Night Visitors?
I think it was.
or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, particularly in formative years of being in college, no college student wants to be told what to do by anyone, right?
Okay.
I went to the school that was the farthest away from my hometown in Central Virginia so that my mama couldn't come find me. What I wanted to do. But, you know, being able to follow instructions and listen, and not only listen, but listen actively. And I would define active listening as you're receiving the information, you're internalizing it. And when you get ready to share a response back to whoever you're talking or performing to, you're giving them what they think or what they thought they were about to receive, right? It might not be the same answer, but you're delivering it in a way that they can consume it. And I think that's the same when a director gives a performer a note on, you know, how to hit the ending of a line. And it's the same as a fundraiser, listening to a prospect share why or why not they are going to give that 6-figure or 7-figure gift to endow a scholarship for the arts. It's the same skill.
Yeah, that's great. I think that I'd like to once again repeat our call for any questions that might be coming in from the audience. If you have any questions for any of these fine folks, I have one I want to direct specifically to Sean, because you alluded to this very briefly, but it's worth spending another minute or two on, and that is this Broadway producing gig. I mean, it's not everybody is. Not everybody can say that they've produced a Broadway show, and especially being one of the lead producers on it. Can you just talk for a minute or two about, first of all, how you got into that, and again, what skill sets you used to actually pull off what is a very rare feat in American life?
So I was working for $50 a week for a guy named Ken Davenport on an improv show that he did called the Awesome 80s Prom. It was at Webster Hall in New York City, and it was like a audience interactive thing. You show up and you're at this 1980s prom, and I played like the bad kid, kind of like you know, like I had to carry like fake marijuana and the Madonna Playboy magazine and show it to people, and nunchucks, and you know, I was like the bad kid, Judd Nelson from The Breakfast Club, you know, that type. And then all of a sudden, years later, I mean, he's a wonderful friend and a client, and he's like, you know, I'm producing Broadway shows, and all of a sudden I was in a position where I could either contribute or give a bit of feedback, but also raise money and tell my friends, hey, listen, this is an often closed off world. Would you like an entry into it? You know, there's some minimums and things like that. And there are people out there who are like-minded and may, you know, want to, some people just maybe write a check to the Met, and those patrons are incredibly valuable because that's, you know, how a lot of arts survive. In the Broadway world, you know, you got a chance at getting some of the money back or making a profit, or it's, you know, if you want to work in musical theater. And so my producer friend, who's head of Davenport Productions, who has gone on to win a Tony, and, you know, he's not doing little, you know, theater anymore and has continued to rise. He invited me on a couple projects, and he just said, listen, who are your contacts? Do what you do to sell real estate. So I reached out to people. I was surprised at all of the response and the interest, and the people who wanted to get involved. And the other nice thing is when it's in previews, you get everybody free tickets. Right. Like a cycling group that I brought them all to my Broadway show. All of a sudden I felt like I was like, this is so fun. And it was a very funny show. It was hilarious. So to have great laughs and be able to share that with people. And that was really nice to be involved at that level. And I know that I'll do it again.
That's fantastic. Wasn't there another Mason alum connection on that show in your Broadway show? I have a note here about Ryan Duncan.
That's right. That's right. He's the greatest guy. He made everybody laugh to tears every night with this kind of improvised jazz lounge singer act that he did, and it would I mean literally tears. He's incredibly talented, and he was in the show along with Mary Lou Henner and other Broadway stars. So he's a great guy. That's right. We connected and talked about how great you were. I promise.
Great. I have a question for Aundi, but you mentioned, Sean, in passing, you can write a check to the Met. Well, I have a little confession here. Until last week, I never wrote a check to the Met for anything, because I figured they didn't need my little bit of check writing that I could do. But they put on a 4-hour, almost entirely live international gala because they couldn't do their in-house beautiful thing that they do. And I was so moved by the ingenuity and the real sense of mission. And I just wanted to, if you had any reflections on that, being a Met artist, and how you felt about how that house rose to the occasion.
I was so proud of my colleagues. I know, of course, Angel Blue and Larry Brownlee.
God, what incredible. Angel Blue, I just have to say.
Isn't she amazing?
All right.
And she's also, let me just say, it's not just being talented that matters. It's also being a good person at heart. And she is one of those artists who is also a very good person at heart. But they did such an amazing job, even though, sometimes the microphones weren't quite right, because once you get in the higher echelons of the voice, the mics get distorted, and we're all still learning this technology curve. But they did a fantastic job, and I was just so proud, and just missing walking through those backstage doors and just talking to everybody, the security and the makeup person, those people who just come and just shake your hand. They're just so glad to see that you're there. So I do miss it. But I have to say the artists were amazing. Erin Morley, she played and sang. And I mean, she played.
That was astonishing.
Oh my God. So, I mean, there's so much talent out there. And I'm just glad to be one of the ones, that was chosen to be among one of those people among on the stage.
What came through from everybody was the sense of pride in the art form and in the institution and what it represents. And I feel that from all of you too. I feel like you all have such investment in your work that you did at Mason, but also in your careers that have taken you to new places. We have a question that has just come in off the wires, and I'm going to read it verbatim, and then I'm going to ask. I think we'll just go in the order that we love to go in, with Isaac, Sean, and Aundi. If you have comments, the question is this: what out of the classroom activities developed your leadership skills? And the questioner says, maybe were they internships? Were they working in student orgs? Was it volunteering, or was there some other specific sort of class? So Isaac.
So Phil, I believe Phil and I engaged on LinkedIn just before this event. When he shared that his daughter might be coming to George Mason. And my response was, not only is the College of Visual and Performing Arts a wonderful place to, have a developing artist, but Northern Virginia is. I can tell you that for a little while, I changed my major from music to my fraternity. And then I decided that I couldn't get a degree in my fraternity, so I changed it back. To make sure that I was able to complete my educational pursuits. But I will tell you, the student organizations and the student affairs department at George Mason is just amazing, alongside the brilliant scholar performers that are hired at George Mason to teach future scholar performers. We've all mentioned that we studied under Patricia Miller. Dean Davis, you taught many of us how to move and how to listen. Professor Stan Engebretson on choral conducting and choral technique and just discipline, right? Following instructions, showing up on time. So there's a wonderful balance that someone who is from a small town or from a big city could come into George Mason, be an arts major at in the College of Visual and Performing Arts, and know that they're going to get a rooted education in excellent art teaching, surrounded with the traditional college experience. And it will be upon them to take advantage of that. The school and the professors and the student affairs leaders will be there with arms wide open. But it'll be the student's choice to say yes. I probably said yes too much, but I did because it did help me figure out my way.
And look at you now. Sean, what about you?
Regarding leadership, I would say ensemble work, working with others. If you do that, whether it's you and a piano player or a small chamber group, if you don't play well with others, you figure out real quick that doesn't work. So learning those skills, and if you're going to be a decent leader, you absolutely need to kind of listen to the people around you, because otherwise you'll be a dictator. And
well put.
That is not a leader.
Yep, exactly. It's a big difference. Aundi?
Before I came to Mason, I was already involved in a lot of outside activities. My mom made sure that I volunteered at homeless shelter, soup kitchens. I was a part of NAACP, so I just took that same homegrown love and brought it to Mason and found the NAACP there. I became the president there while I was a student. And then I also was involved in Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I became a Delta girl. And we do sororities and fraternities, as you know, do a lot of community service. And you have to, exactly right, Sean, have to be able to work with others. And being in the capacity like that, especially with an organization with a bunch of women, you got to learn how to work together. And that was very, very instrumental in my leadership skills. But also the final thing to really tighten up the leadership skills is learning how to delegate, because you can't do it all. And I realized that when I saw my grades starting to slip a little bit, and then I began to start being like, okay, you take this, you take that, but mine was my sorority and also NAACP. And I also sat on the student council board. And I was also an ambassador at George Mason. I'm a busybody and still is. And I haven't changed that much. Okay, I just got a little older. But yes, I'm a busybody. But yeah, no, I did quite a few organizations while I was at Mason.
So I think that's fantastic. You all mentioned, this is fantastic. There's some people say extracurricular, some people say co-curricular. They're related ideas that the coursework is the core, obviously, but you've all found ways to build on that and get really meaningful sort of life experience. I'm gonna sort of bring us home with one final question for each of you, and once again, it's the same question. And I'm sorry if it's both a little obvious and a surprise. So stand by. But the premise of the question is this: you've all been very, very successful, not just as students, not as alums, but also as professionals in multiple platforms. And that is a pretty neat trick, actually. And we're very, very proud of you, each in your own way. And we look for great things to come. So if you were giving the 1-minute commencement speech at the graduation that we're not having this year because of why, which is we're missing seeing everybody every day, and we're really missing our great CVPA convocation in May because it's such a splendid chance to watch students strut their stuff one more time, and it's so beautiful. Can't do that, but we can hear from 3 distinguished alumni of our program in a 1-minute commencement speech. And I won't say who should go first this time. Whoever's ready. Sean, was that a hand?
Isaac, Sean, go ahead. Go for it.
Okay, real quick. 1 minute. Where's my timer?
I'll time you.
Clock too.
I've got you.
Good. So I would say creating multiple identities is very helpful. Even no matter what you're doing. I was working on a huge deal, and every time I kind of got in my head about it, it was the biggest deal I've ever sold. And I would start to go a little crazy with it. I would go out and go paddleboarding because I had a huge paddleboard race that year, and it's just something I got into. I was paddling between 2 Hawaiian islands. That was bigger and scarier than the deal. and it got me out of my head, and whatever little problem I had was suddenly solved when I came back. Maybe it's just jogging. Jogging is free, but creating some second identity, because that can also be a revenue stream, maybe a second form of income. There's a big surfer that I listen to, Laird Hamilton, who says, scare yourself once a day. But I think also Eleanor Roosevelt said that. He probably learned it from her. So scaring yourself once a day, not foolishly, don't jump off a building, but challenging yourself and saying, okay, I'm going to do this. Boy, it's incredibly gratifying, and it keeps you living forever, I think.
Wow, great. That's a good minute.
All right.
Isaac, you were ready to go?
Oh, well, I was brainstorming, and then Sean spoke, and I said, "Oh no, this." I would probably say, seek to be exceptional in all that you do. Know that in that exceptionality, you don't have to pursue that journey alone, and it is the community that is around you, that is supporting you, that you to be the best you can be. That community might be a partner, a spouse, a loved one. It might be your children. It might be a parent. It could very well be, and it should be inclusive of the George Mason University Alumni Network, right? Leaning into your fellow peers, but also recognize that on the pathway to exceptionality, allow failure to be a lesson. If we can define failure as the not measuring up to our own expectations or one's own expectations, we do a little failing every day, and that's okay. But let's not be afraid to fail, and let's learn from it, grow from it, and continue on that pathway of being exceptional.
Beautiful. Thank you. Aundi, do you have a final cadenza for us?
Sure. I tell you, going last is hard because these brothers are so good and they're so eloquent with their words, honey. So I would tell the students, they don't get to say. Whenever I went into those audition rooms and I got the rejection letter from an opera company or a rejection letter from an audition, I would say this, one of my good girlfriends and I, who's also a singer, we would say, they don't get to say who I'm going to be, who I am, what I am going to do. They don't get to make that decision for me. And when you put that in your mind and really have that playing in your reel in the back of your head, you can do anything because you have decided they don't get to say. It's only you who will be able to create the opportunity that you're looking for. And so what I would say to the students, push, keep going, don't quit, because you're going to face failure, just like Isaac said. You're going to fall, but get up, dust yourself off, and remember, they don't get to say who you're going to be.
Well, that's fantastic. It's so great to see all of you. I'm going to give the screen a big, very safe, socially distanced hug here. There you go.
Thank you.
It's wonderful to see you all. Thank you so much for your time, your insight, your wisdom, your generosity. And I want to thank everybody watching at home, whether you're watching us right now live or in the archive version of this a little bit later. Thanks for being with us on Mason Arts at Home. And I just want to wish everybody a safe and happy life.
Yeah.
There it is. Good night, everybody.
Thanks.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.